What makes a great game great? We can all agree, of course, that everything from story to sounds, graphics, voice acting, gameplay come about to make a game what it is. But is that enough? Today we'll be talking about the award-winning God of War game and compare it with WoW to understand why in a day and age dominated by live games, a single-player game crushed every other game on the market. Before we dive deeper, I want to say that this is coming from my personal perspective. This is not a review or an objective critique. I haven't watched or read any reviews for God of War, mainly because I just finished it recently and didn't want to get spoiled. And I'm not a professional reviewer or critic of any form of media. I am, however, a gamer who, for the last couple of years, has used gaming for professional means. I have been a gamer for over 2 decades and played different types of games on different types of consoles. I am also biased. Another disclaimer I want to make is that I understand that the games are pertaining to 2 different genres, so it's pretty irrelevant to compare the two, which is why I am not doing something so technical. I also would genuinely want to know other people's opinions. People who have finished God of War, because the end of the game is pretty relevant to judging the whole, and are also WoW players. Down in the comment section. This will be generally spoiler free, but may include things that could hint at some story development of the game, so if you are interested in experiencing the game untainted, which I wholeheartedly recommend, don't watch this video until you have finished God of War. It's no surprise God of War is used as an example of a great game at this point. There's probably nobody in the gaming industry that doesn't know about this gem and how good it is. I debated for a long time about getting a console to play some couch games and just chill. And when God of War had only 1 month left before its release, I bought my first console. Not to mention that God of War single-handedly rose Sony to amazing new heights in terms of sales and popularity. And this is all coming from a game available on 1 console. Why am I talking about this? I am talking about this to give you some form of perspective on the game's impact in the gaming world. Some people may not know or understand what God of War did in 2018. Companies like EA claimed multiple times that the future of gaming is online games, and that single-player games are a thing of the past. And it's hard not to feel that these companies, making these assumptions, are companies focused primarily and sometimes singularly on profit at the expense of some aspect crucial to game design. I talked in a previous video how these companies were essentially proven wrong time and time again by games like Witcher 3, Breath of the Wild, and of course, yours truly, God of War, developed by the amazing Santa Monica team. Why am I talking about this now? Why is all of this so important? And why is this fair, or in any sense relevant, to compare World of Warcraft with God of War? Hold on, boys, one at a time. The reason this whole talk is important is because game publishers and design corporations do not always know what we want, and however much game companies think that they are setting the trend when it comes to gaming culture, they are only half right. We are also a part of the equation, and no matter how great and well thought out the online experience is, if the game itself is lacking in depth, content, etc., it will bomb. And again, this whole thing matters because Blizzard was once establishing gaming trends. It doesn't matter what genre it was developing. And most people believe that Activision Blizzard has followed the trend of similar companies like EA, Bethesda, BioWare, even though some are designers and some are publishers, into thinking that what their game needs is more accessibility, bigger market spread, and all things you would expect from companies like Coca-Cola, corporations that have a singular goal of making big fat loads of cash. It's so painfully obvious at this point, and has been for a while, that Blizzard fans have been rambling about this for a long time. And as said many times before, the reason we point it out time and time again is because we are emotionally attached to Blizzard, like very few other companies. And with this we can actually talk about what we set out to do. So, God of War, what kind of game is it? Well, it's really interesting because their developer, Santa Monica, did something that Blizzard is too afraid to do. They strayed away from their original formula that brought their success. They adopted a new combat style, among other things. If you played games like Dark Souls, you can probably see similarities in the combat styles. I'm not saying that Dark Souls, or Demon Souls, were the pioneers of this game style, but they sure were the ones who popularized it. In the new God of War title, you have a roll, a block, a parry, and a parry punish attack on top of the combos and special moves that we were familiar with in the older games. The camera is also over the shoulder as opposed to the multitude of angles you would get from the previous title. All of these changes are not revolutionary in gaming, but they are different from what Santa Monica did before, not to mention the RPG elements introduced. There's gear now, gear with stats and crafting. I never realized how much I missed crafting in an RPG until I met Brock and Sindri. Put into comparison, WoW's gearing system and crafting system has taken a tremendous dive into mediocrity and irrelevancy. In God of War, you have options of choosing between very few sets with very few upgrade options, yet they feel important and most of all meaningful. In WoW, we essentially have that haste and mastery item, that crit and verse item, that item you activate to get one of the stats I just mentioned, and I'm not even going to go into the Azerite system. The next thing I wanted to touch on is characters. Once again, the scale of God of War is fairly small, with interesting characters that you can count on less than 10 fingers. There are RPGs out there that do a great job at developing stories for a lot of characters, like Witcher. But you don't have to have 10 to 20 characters for Alliance and 10 to 20 more for Horde, with 5 more added each patch for the game to be interesting. All I care about when I'm playing Priest is that I am a part of the Order Alonce's Foul is a part of, yet you never see him in game. Except the Order Hall. Anduin is debatably an interesting character, flawed by cliches and stereotypes. Anduin Wrynn has the potential of being such a cool character in the lore. His journey is really cool yet so underdeveloped. The last time I truly cared about Anduin is when he found his father's sword on the Broken Isles. On the other side of the spectrum, Atreus has a heartwarming growth from what he is at the beginning of the game and what he ends up by the end. Atreus is essentially a kid trying to grow up like we all were, yet hindered by youth, impatience, and a willing to prove himself. All in all, a more relatable character than the son of a king. And yet, Atreus is the son of a god, and at the same time more human than Anduin. The issue that I see here, and this goes far beyond Anduin Wrynn, is that Blizzard stopped making relatable characters. How in the frickin' hell did Thrall give up his Doomhammer? At the beginning of Legion, he gives you the Doomhammer with the reasoning of a lazy script and an excuse to justify Metzen leaving the company. The elements refused to aid Thrall after his Mak'gora with Garrosh? Yet the elements felt okay in aiding the Green Orcs altogether after their corruption and violation in Draenor. One of the few characters Blizzard is doing right by at the moment is Jaina, and I really hope they don't kill her off as they did Vol'jin, which they probably realized was a shit move, hence bringing him back in another way. What stems from characters can be seen into story as well. The premise of BFA is so fucking good that I really lost my shit in 2017 at BlizzCon when they showed the trailer. We get to fight again? We get to sack this sanctimonious bullcrap of Horde and Alliance joining together for the greater good? Fuck yeah! I'm so sick and tired of the concept of greater evil requiring everyone to sack their differences and join together. It was fun once. It was fun against the Legion. But what is the point of having two factions if all we ever do is realize we cannot survive unless we unite? I'm not saying that uniting in the face of adversity is not a just or noble cause. I am saying it's boring. It's not interesting. We all know how the story ends. We unite, we kill the guy, and one story character dies. At least one Horde character and sometimes one Alliance. I like the fact that BFA spawned conversations between me and my friends over which side is right. It was insanely hard and stupid of me to take the side of the Horde, since I am a Horde, with everything Sylvanas is doing. Yet at the same time, the Alliance is so bland, so generic, that the only interesting thing they have going for them is that the cool Tyrion guys were morally ambiguous to the point of corruption. Because evil in WoW is almost always corruption. Corruption, corruption, corruption. Garrosh had an interesting thing going for him, even though I disliked the fact that they vilified him, until he got corrupted by the heart of Y'Shaarj. But not really, right? God of War has a simpler story. One of a father trying to raise his son and not let his own past mistakes rub off. Kratos is such an amazing father, purely because he is so flawed and doesn't want Atreus to follow in his footsteps, that of a god and a god killer. I can relate to Atreus and understand Kratos. I have no idea what I would do if I was Anduin, Jaina, Greymane, Sylvanas, Nathanos, etc., simply because those characters don't make me want to care for them, however much I want to. As a side note, Brock and Sindri are some of the most hilarious NPCs I have ever had the pleasure of interacting with. The last thing I want to talk about is game difficulty. It's no secret that WoW's skill cap has been reduced over the years. Mechanically, WoW has never been a difficult game. The difficulty came from strict RPG elements, like the boss being so difficult to kill that not only did you need very hard to get gear, but a lot of people to chime in too. Now, a boss is killed within 2 to 3 weeks after the raid is released, with 3 more months of you killing him again and again, only to make the super cool epic item it drops irrelevant by the easiest boss of the next raid. Every new raid essentially makes the previous one obsolete and irrelevant in terms of progression, because every new raid comes with an upgrade to the eye level of the gear you got from everywhere else. There was a time in WoW where you did a raid and had that one epic item drop that could carry you for at least 1 or 2 more raids by the end of the expansion. That was good. It was as good as me going back to kill that Valkyrie I encountered 2 story chapters ago, just because she might drop that one material that can help me craft something. There's a point where character progression becomes so important to Blizzard that they need to make us feel that every new boss we kill is a super duper achievement because we got a piece of gear better than everything else we had. But when every new boss is amazing because it drops loot far better than what we have, no new boss is amazing. This is essentially another problem I see with WoW. Essentially, when Battle for Dazala launches, there will be 0 realistic reasons to go back into Uldir, because the time spent on raiding Uldir could be better spent on the new raid. Where are those cool trinkets with the cool effects that you can use for the rest of the expansion? They are in the new raid, relevant only until the next raid. All of these things, characters, story, gear, game difficulty, all of these have been dumbed down and made accessible to everyone because Blizzard wants all of its player base to have access to 100% of the content they release. But this is not what makes a game great. This is not what sells a game. If there's anything that we can learn from God of War, a game where the average player will never beat all of the Valkyries, not without hours and hours and hours of repeating the encounter. A game where the average player will never collect all the gear and unlock all of the spells and combos. A game that the average gamer will still 100% enjoy, because having everything and going everywhere is not what we really want. Fundamentally, what makes something valuable is its rarity and difficulty to attain. What keeps people playing is not killing monsters with that amazing overpowered sword, is the struggle to get the sword, the struggle to overcome obstacles, and once you do, the satisfaction of knowing, wow, that was hard and I did it. What makes gamers enjoy a story is binging a gut-wrenching plot, dying to know what happens next or how this whole thing turns out. Not playing the first chapter and hitting a wall saying, Oh, you have to wait a few weeks or months before you find out what happens to this guy. Is it wrong to expect this from an MMO? Is it right to expect an MMO to have the same elements as a single player game? Pfft, I don't care! I don't care that MMOs are not designed to give me a gameplay experience similar to God of War, because at the end of the day, I will play what is fun and not what is done right within the boundaries of its own self-imposed limitations. Limitations imposed by financial factors, decided by the corporate gurus who think that the best way for their game to make money is to feed us small crumbs at steady intervals so we stay subscribed. Don't get me wrong, this wouldn't be an issue if those crumbs could be fed in an interesting way. And to avoid more metaphors, I don't care that I have to wait 3 months to find out what happens to Saurfang. I don't care that I have to wait half a year to finally find out what happens to Azshara, as long as I can have fun waiting. The conclusion is, get your head out of your asses, Activision Blizzard, and look at the real world. Make your game store and sell your super cool mounts there. But don't do that when a game is suffering from a shitty gear system, a shitty struggle reward system, a shitty story and immersion system. You are sitting in a front row seat to your own preconception, being proven wrong.